Oh, absolutely. Yes, and that's exactly what that neighborhood will offer. Yes, sir. Oh, that's so exciting. What the hell was that? That was me listening because I asked the right questions. What you want to do on your calls is you want to ask the right questions to get the other person talking. So they're telling you what's important to them. And asking the right questions is crucial in building rapport on that initial phone call with any prospective client. There are unlimited number of questions you can ask to start to build rapport with the prospective client, but to save yourself time, energy, money, and make sure that you have a viable lead on the other line, the most important question you can possibly ask is trying to figure out their motivation. So there's a little hidden rule of thumb when it comes to motivation to sell, and those are the 5 Ds. Death, debt, divorce, downsizing, and deployment for us in our area because we have a lot of military folks. So if you can figure out if one of those 5 Ds is present in your buyer's or seller's particular situation, you've got a pretty good likelihood that they are very motivated to buy or sell real estate. So why is motivation important? To make sure that you're not barking up the wrong tree. You don't want to keep reaching out and keep trying to have a conversation with somebody who is unmotivated to buy. There are thousands and thousands of leads out there, right? Our job as an agent is to try to find the ones that are the most motivated to buy or sell real estate in order to help them reach their real estate goals. But you don't want to spend all the time and energy on the guy who thinks he possibly might be contemplating the idea of the thought of potentially one day thinking about moving from Ohio to the beach. Or do you want to help a military family that has to be here and start work on August 1st? Sorry, I think I'd rather help the guy that has a reason, has a job, has a relocation to the area. I'd much rather spend my time and energy on someone that I know needs to be here by a certain time than the guy who's thinking about possibly wondering if it is even feasible to think about if he sold his mother's farm that's up in Atlanta outskirts. Could he take the money and the property from the proceeds from there and potentially think about maybe doing a 1031 exchange that he could eventually turn into an Airbnb that his sister and his brother could use only on the 3rd Wednesday of the month on leap year if the moon's a crescent moon and the high tide and all the other factors, right? No. Give me a motivated buyer or seller and I will be inclined to help them all day long. This guy over here is a dreamer. It's a pipe dream. Not that we're not going to put some time and energy in there, but we're going to wait for him to kind of come to his senses and get a little bit more motivated before we spend a lot of time and energy. That way we're focusing our time, highest and best use of our time is spent on someone that we can help sooner than later. Probably the very next series of questions you need to ask is creating a priority list with your potential clients, right? The top 5 must-haves when they're purchasing a home, right? What are the deal breakers? What do they have to have? Does it have to be in a certain community? Is there a certain number of bedrooms and baths? Is there a certain size lot, certain size backyard they have to have? Does the house have to have a pool? Does it have to have a fence? Does it have to have a doggy door for the little Shih Tzu that's only this big, right? There's all sorts of things. And guess what? Those things change from client to client because everybody's different. Everybody has different priorities. Everybody has a different top 5 list. So if you just take for granted and just oh, they have 2 kids, so they only need a 3-bedroom house. No, you don't know that their sister comes in town every other weekend, and so their grandparents come every other weekend besides that, so they actually need 5 bedrooms. You can't assume anything. You have to ask all of the right questions to make sure that when you're dialing in their home search and you're looking for properties for them, that you're finding viable options. I've had people that have fired me in the past because I didn't listen to exactly what they wanted and I didn't cater their search. I wasn't sending them properties that were actually like what they wanted, because I thought I knew what they wanted instead of listening to what they actually wanted and creating that list of the top 5 things that they must have. And you know what? You want to create that list, keep it present, put it at the top of your CRM, right at the top, right underneath, save it as a note, right underneath their name so you can revisit that often. So every time you pull up their name in your CRM, you're looking at those 5 things. And then when you talk to them, reiterate those things to them, right? Remind them that you're listening to them, that you understood what they're looking for. Because all of a sudden, if they're now sending you houses that don't match those 5 things, you guys need to have another conversation, because obviously their wants and needs have changed. And I don't know how many times I've dealt with buyers and sellers, for that matter, sellers telling me that like, oh, I want to get X amount of price, I need to sell by this time, and then all of a sudden it changed, their timeline changed or something else. But buyers will tell me, hey, these are my top 5 things that I want. And then 2 months into the home search, next thing you know, we're looking at houses that are in a completely different neighborhood, houses that don't have pools. They wanted a fireplace initially, now all the houses don't have a fireplace. What happened? They started going through houses and realizing, you know what, we really don't need that. Oh, we'd really like to have that, right? Because when people start shopping, they start to change. You know, think about the time you went and bought a car. Did you start looking at a Toyota, but you ended up buying a Honda? You know, things change and you have to be able to pivot and adapt. But if you don't keep those things that they started with, that list, top of mind, then you can't ever go back. You have nothing to go back to and hold them accountable to what they told you. So adjusting that search on a regular basis and revisiting those top 5 things is very important to make sure that your client, you're sending them properties that they don't get like discouraged, right? And go like, God damn, he keeps sending me all this stuff that I don't like, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've had it happen. So make sure you listen, revisit those top 5 often. Then when you get to find houses that have those 5 things, you've done your job. And then you have to ask them, okay, this house has everything that you initially wanted, or it has 4 out of the 5 things, which is a win. We've talked about that in other videos. 75% of what a buyer's looking for is a win. There's no such thing as a perfect home. Now you can remind them, hey, these are 4 of the top 5 things you told me you wanted. Like, are we gonna write the offer or what? Like, come on, I did my job, let's go. Time to write. Write that escrow check, write that money for EMD. You know, because you've completed your job. But if you don't, like, if you're just, you have no idea what the hell they're looking for, and you guys are just like, oh God, hey, I've shown you 55 houses because I never properly asked the right questions on the front end. Therefore, to narrow down your search so we don't have to look at stuff that aren't really a good option for you, like, you failed. So starting with that top 5 list is crucial. Besides motivation, those 2 things right there are things you have to nail from the very get-go if you want to keep a client happy and save yourself time and energy. Another key question you need to ask, and this is the one that everybody's afraid to ask, is about financing, right? If they can't not finance the house, then all of this is for nothing. But you have to be strategic how you bring up the financing question. You need to make sure you don't just like open the call. Hey, this is Mark with 850 Homes. Can you get a loan? No, you gotta you gotta get some questions out there. You gotta be building rapport with them because you wanna be able to explain the value of maybe talking to your preferred lender. And if you don't have a preferred lender that you work with on a regular basis, you need one. Why? Because that lender is your go-to. They're your backup. They're who help you get that. They can ask some of those tough questions for you. All you have to do is make the introduction to the lender, because guess what? Majority of people that are on the phone with you are not going to be paying cash. There is a portion of them that will come in and they will be paying cash for a house, but I would say 95% of the people, if not more, are going to be getting a mortgage on the property. Therefore, they're going to need financing. So asking the financing question up front, there's a very subtle, easy way to do it. Will you be paying cash or you need a mortgage to purchase your home? That opens up the floodgates. Assume they have cash, right? Assume they do, because guess what? People want to say, nope, actually we'll be getting a mortgage on this home. Then if they are paying cash, you don't want to insult them as if they don't have cash to pay for the home, right? So will you be paying cash or will you need a mortgage on this property? That's a nice segue into, oh, we're going to need a mortgage. Oh, great. Have you talked to any lenders? Because I have the perfect lender who's going to be able to get you pre-qualified. So that way we have a pre-qualification letter as we start our home search. But you don't want to ask that question too early on, because financing, that's a finicky, very tough, sticky topic for a lot of people. Some people have had some financial issues in the past, so they may not want to talk about that, especially with you, some crazy realtor like that they just met online. Right? You have to be able to kind of ease into that. A lot of times what I say, and for our agents, is we will give kind of a freebie showing, if you will, right? Go out and meet them. So that way we get face to face with the client before we ask them to go through the pre-qualification process, because sometimes that's all they need. All they need to do is get their feet walking through that front door, and then all of a sudden the financing thing is not a problem anymore, because now they've started to walk the walk of a potential home buyer, and now they feel comfortable with talking with a home lender. Another key component of the motivation of a potential buyer is their timeline, right? We need to find out what is their desired move-in date, because some people are going to say they don't have one. Right? They're just starting the search, so they could be a year out, they could be 2 years out. You could also have somebody that is relocating to the area and their start date for their new job is October 1st. Well, guess what? They're probably going to want to be here a month or two prior to that, right? To close on their property, get settled before, nobody wants to close on a property on Friday and start work on Monday, right? You kind of want to get here, get established, kind of get your feet grounded and everything else. So finding out that timeline is also going to set you up for what are the next steps with this particular buyer, right? Because if their timeline's, let's say 6 months to a year out, and they're not here local, well, guess what? The next thing I'm going to suggest is let's jump on a Zoom call. So that way I get to meet you, you get to meet me. Thanks to COVID, we all are familiar with Zoom calls these days. And then that way you can kind of build rapport from a personal level, right? Now, if their timeline's a little bit shorter or they happen to be local, then I'm going to suggest, hey, why don't we go grab a coffee? Let's sit down and kind of build a game plan to get you in your home on the timeline that you have, right? Make sure that you're going to be in there by when you want, because basically at that point, if we have a set timeline, we reverse engineer the process. So we know it's going to take at least 30 days to close. So therefore, we're going to have to be under contract 30 days prior to what you want as your move-in date. So that means our home search has got to start probably 2 months, at least 2 months prior to that, maybe even longer. So having that timeline, having that drop dead date of when they want to move in is crucial in this process. But again, if they're not ready right now, don't wait. You can't just go, oh, you're a year out. Okay, I'm just going to put you over here in my CRM and set you up on some automatic emails and I'll talk to you next year. No, you got to try to get in front of them. This is something we didn't have to do the last couple of years in real estate. Why? Because we all got lazy. Everybody was buying a home. How fast can we write the offers? Oh my God, it's a frenzy. Well, guess what? The process has slowed down. Now you actually have to work and follow up with leads for a longer period of time because the process is slower than it used to be. Agents aren't accustomed to this. They're not going to be good at it. If you can master this, you will master the market. You have to adapt. You have to be able to adapt to current market conditions, which means change everything about how you did the business from just a couple years ago. So guess what? The teams and the agents who can be nimble enough to pivot and adjust to market conditions the fastest are the ones who are gonna win and dominate in a changing market. There is a whole other timeline that you need to be concerned about when you're having these initial calls and when you're working with a prospective buyer. What is their timeline? Like, how long do they plan on living in the home? Do they plan on having any children? Like, you get a small young couple that has like 2 kids and you talk to them about like, where do they see themselves in 5 years? And they say, oh, we're gonna have 6 kids running around, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Maybe you need to look a little bit further than the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square foot house that they're looking at. Maybe they need to plan a little bit for their future, spend a little bit more money up front now so they don't have to move later. Right? So asking the right questions are, where are their dreams, hopes, and desires? Where do they want to be in 5 years? You know, do they plan on like eventually relocating to another city? And if they do, are they going to keep this property as a rental property? If they tell you that, yeah, they have dreams of having a rental portfolio, well, will this house make a good rental? Does it make sense for them to buy this house right now if they plan on turning it into a rental later on? Or should you maybe direct them over to a different neighborhood that maybe has higher rental income, if that's their long-term goals? So making sure you fully understand what financial goals, what dreams your client has, to make sure that they are making the right decision today that is going to set them up for their future. So now that you know how to qualify your prospective buyers by asking the right questions, you're ready to take the next step in our video series, Mastering Client Calls. And this next video is about active listening. Now that you've asked the right questions, now you need to zip it and listen. Take the cotton out of your ears and stick it in your mouth. If you think this was even remotely possibly any particular way could even remotely help anyone like be a better agent, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you at the closing table. Some of the side effects of not clicking the like and subscribe button down below are 0 listings, 0 closings, 0 commissions, diarrhea, gonorrhea, arachnophobia, dementia, working back at Chick-fil-A.